Alright guys, welcome back to some economics lessons. Today we're going to be talking about two different regulations that governments can sometimes put on markets, free markets, and those two regulations are going to be the price floor and the price ceiling. I'm going to talk about the price ceiling first and then the price floor, and just so you can get an idea of how these policies affect a market. And so we're also going to be applying what we've learned about supply and demand, and specifically the supply and demand graph. This video will assume you already know how to read and write a supply and demand graph. So if you don't know how to do that, go look it up. So right now we're going to be talking about this fictional market for bread. And here we have our supply and demand graphs here. And right now this market is at equilibrium, which if you remember is where the quantity demanded and quantity supplied for bread are equal, and the price demanded and the price paid by the consumers are also equal. So everything is equal right now in this market. However, some people, let's say somebody complains about the price of bread. They say, oh, the price of bread is too high, not enough people can afford it, and so they ask the government to institute what's known as a price ceiling. Just a second, there we go. A price ceiling. So the price ceiling is where the government institutes an artificially maximum price for the good in question. So in this case, this is now the maximum price that sellers can ask for their bread. And so there are a couple of different consequences for this. First of all, consumers really like this change. As you can see, the amount that consumers demand increases drastically, right? Before it was here, but now at the new price it's here. This, of course, is because of the law of demand, which says that when the price of a good decreases, the quantity demanded increases. Now, on the other side, however, we have the sellers, and the sellers aren't as so happy with this change, and so they decrease the amount of bread that they supply. Once again, law of supply. When the cost or the price of a good falls, the amount of the good produced decreases. And so now we have a situation where there's a difference between the amount produced and the amount demanded. The market is no longer at equilibrium. And this difference is called the shortage. So price ceilings produce shortages because there are artificial constraints on the market. And so what actually happens is, if you notice that the quantity produced, the actual amount of bread that's available in the market has fallen dramatically from when it was at equilibrium to now. So while more consumers are able to afford bread and are able to purchase bread, there's actually less bread for them to buy in the market, which is really interesting. All right, so let's take a look then at the next on our list, which is the price floor. Now you can think of the price floor as the opposite of the price ceiling. The price ceiling institutes a legal maximum for how much a good can be sold for, whereas the price floor institutes a legal minimum. This is now the smallest amount of money that bread can be sold for in this theoretical market. So let's take a look at the consequences of this. The first consequence is that suppliers really like this higher price, and so they produce more of the good, which was kind of the point of the policy. The point of the policy is to make it so that producers can sell their good at a higher price and hopefully make a profit from it. And so they'll produce more of the good. Now, the other consequence is that consumers don't like the higher price and will actually decrease their demand for the good. And so once again, we have this difference between the quantity produced and the quantity demanded. And this difference, when it's a price floor, is called the surplus, because now there's more bread than people actually want to buy. Now, this is a problem, because all of this bread here is going to waste, and also producers aren't making as much profit as they thought they would, because the amount has decreased. The amount that they actually sell, that is. And so we can see that even though this is also a well-intentioned policy, it doesn't really have the effects it was intended to have. In the same way that the price ceiling, though well-intentioned, doesn't really have the effects it means to have. Both mess up the equilibrium of the market. which is generally in a pretty good place, right? Here, pretty much everyone is happy. The suppliers are happy. The consumers are generally happy. But with both the price ceiling and the price floor, it kind of messes up the equilibrium. It creates inefficiencies in the market. And it's really not that great of an idea, which is why economists generally don't recommend instituting price floors or price ceilings. So why do politicians do it? Why are these policies put in place? The simple answer is it makes you more popular, especially a price ceiling. If you institute a price ceiling, people will notice that the price of bread is decreased. They will definitely notice that, but they may not really notice the fact that less bread is being produced, not if you're a consumer. And so the fact that you can say, oh, I reduced the price of bread will make you a much popular politician, and you may get voted in next year. That's why these policies continue being put in place, because people still think they're a good idea. They look good on the surface. After all, we're paying less for bread, but there are lots of unintended consequences, shortages, and surpluses that result. But now you understand the problems with these policies. You understand that because the law of supply and because of the law of demand, that these policies don't really have the intended consequences, and you can take steps to prevent them. Alright, I hope this was helpful and that you now understand price floors and price ceilings and the law of supply and demand a little bit better, and I hope to see you guys next time.